Give it up, everybody. Make some noise. What was it about wrestling that drew you in?
I wasn't going into wrestling. I was playing football. So when I got into 7th grade, it went football first, and then I was going to go into basketball. But they didn't have basketball for 7th graders.
Oh, wow.
So my football coach was a wrestling coach, and he told me, he said, hey, man, try wrestling. And I was a pro wrestling fan, so I was like,
oh, sure.
Man, there's a lot of things going on. I got to think of a name. I got to think of this. And that's what I was thinking about, because I didn't know anything about amateur wrestling at all. And so I came into the amateur wrestling room because my coach was kind of like a mentor of mine. So, of course, I gave it a chance. So I went in there and I checked it out. And at the time, I was tiny. So in the 7th grade, I was weighing about 76 pounds.
Wow.
So I was one of the little
It's like the size of one of your biceps now.
Right. When I went to 8th grade, I was 84 pounds. But it was a chance for me to compete against people my own size. I was a super athlete in football. Like, I was a running back. I was quick. But when I got hit, I got hit.
Yeah.
Because everybody was bigger than me. I was 110 pounds in when I was in 9th grade. And then high school, I graduated at 160. So I was really small.
You were a national champion at 177, right?
Yes, when I went to college, yes. I was a champion at 177, 184. And then when I went to Olympic Training Center, I started getting fed and like proper nutrition, proper training, and stuff like that. I wrestled 187 the first year, and then I went up to 211.
Oh, wow.
That. Yeah.
So that's the big boys.
My body filled in. I grew about 3 inches and just became me.
Yeah. So you obviously you took to the wrestling very well.
Yeah.
You said you were a pro wrestling fan. Who did you love growing up? Who was your guy?
I mean, there were so many names that I wasn't. For me, I wasn't so much into the storylines. I just like to see the matches. I like to see the fight,
the flying, and the moves and everything.
Yeah, if the tougher they were, the better. The bigger fan I was. You know, I wanted to be like every kid. You know, jumping off of this, jumping off of that,
sure.
Body slamming each other. We did all that. But of course, the Ricky the Dragon Steamboats, $1 Million Man, Sergeant Slaughter. I mean, and the list goes on. I can't say one particular person. I was just a fan of everyone.
So you love. So it wasn't so much the pageantry. It wasn't the interviews, the mic work. It was all about the in-ring work.
Yeah, it was
for you.
It was. And then from the amateur wrestling background, we were always and MMA. I fought in MMA for a while. It was always that we're gonna be really humble and not say anything,
right?
And just go and compete. So that's where I came from. So when I got into WWE, they handed me a mic, and I was like, "What do I do with this thing?" You know. And so, some of the guys actually built their career on being able to talk on the mic.
Sure.
And I was the opposite way. I wanted to go out there and fight. I was like, just put me in the ring. I don't want to talk about it. Let's just fight.
Well, you look at somebody like a Hulk Hogan, who in ring, not the greatest wrestler. No knock on the man, but on the mic, that's where he shined. But you know, there are wrestlers like yourselves, and you know who I really loved was Jake the Snake Roberts. Was one of my favorites because my real name is Jake. So like when you're a fat kid, you look up to a guy with a snake, and you're like, oh, that guy can do stuff. He's awesome. So you know, it's that kind of stuff. It's like the in ring, and then Dean Malenko. You know, these guys like that with just the technical wrestling and things like that. It was awesome to watch. And you with you went to MMA. So you did a stint at WWE, and then you went to MMA, in which you had a stellar record. I mean, like 14-2, I believe is that right?
17-2.
17-2. Bad intel. Bad intel. I apologize. I apologize for that. Now, what? So you came back in April to WWE. So what made you jettison from MMA?
You know, my whole career it's gonna be a really interesting book. When I first got into WWE, well, first I was at the Olympic Training Center.
Yep.
Kurt came down, and Kurt Angle came down. He was doing a vignette, and he saw me, and he was like, "Man," he said, "you gotta look. You gotta look." Keep saying that, and he was like, "Man, you ever think about pro wrestling?" And I was a huge Kurt Angle fan because amateur wrestling.
Sure.
He was a gold medalist when I was in college, winning a national championship. So I looked up to him, and he was a machine. So I was like, "Man, tell me what to do." So he gave me Jerry Briscoe's number. Jerry Briscoe called me, but it was a year before the Olympics. It was in 2003. So I was like, I can't go into pro wrestling right now because the Olympics is next year, and I've been training for the past 20 years just to make it to the Olympics. You know, that was my goal, my big goal. And I think about 3 months after talking with Kurt and linking up with the WWE, I was in a bank, and a bank got robbed. And when it got robbed, I got shot at. And when I got shot at, I took a dive down on the ground. When I dove down on the ground, I landed on my knee. And ended my amateur wrestling career. I mean, it tore my knee up. I had like 3 surgeries on it. And then when I was sitting down, I was sitting on the couch rehabbing. And at that point, I was like, man, I put all this time into amateur wrestling. Olympics was my goal. And I'm sitting down there with a straight leg cast. And the doctor told me, he was like, well, you're going to be rehabbing for like 8 months. So there's no way that you can come back.
Window, yeah.
So you missed your window. And I'm sitting there like, this is crazy. But at the same time, when he was telling me that it was going to take 8 months, I was like, that's 8 months for the regular person. I'm going to be back in 4 months. And then I'm going to have 2 months to train for the Olympics. And I'm still going to make it. And then a month later, my knee swole back up, and the doctor left some kind of gauze in my knee.
Oh no!
So it got infected. So I had to go to surgery again 2 months after that. So it was a huge mess. So now I'm back on the couch with the leg brace on. What now?
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. And then I got a call back again from Briscoe, and he was like, "Look, I know that you want to wait until the Olympics, but here's a window for us also, and we'd like for you to come up here and get looked at and potentially, make it onto our roster." So, it's one door closed, the other door open.
Sure,
I did not tell him about the surgery, didn't tell him about any of this stuff, and then I ended up running into it. But anyway, to make a long story short, when I came back, and it's a lot of stuff happened in that point. But after I took my stint in WWE at first, I still had that competitive edge. Like I still wanted to compete. A lot of my friends were moving from wrestling into fighting. And I talked to Vince at the time. There was going to be some type of merger between WWE and UFC at the time. Something they were doing. Something.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went over to Vince. I was like, I'll fight. I'll do it. And he was like, we'll think about it. Anyway, I broke apart, and then I went and started training for fighting. And I mean, I got that fix in. But with WWE's in your blood. Like I absolutely love wrestling, pro wrestling. I mean, it's the greatest business in the world. I get good guy, bad guy on TV, and just the storylines, being in the locker room. I was just yesterday. I'm sitting there with Matt Hardy and Finn, and I was like, man, this is the greatest job that in the entire world.
It seems like a big family. It really does kind of seem like that. And I mean, honestly, we all grew up with it, and we all. It's all part of the fabric of who we are as people now. So that's a huge thing to be involved in. It sounds like everywhere you go, though, you just rise to the top. I watch videos, and you seem like a really nice guy here, but I've seen you beat people really bad. Like I watched the video of you and Bob Sapp just a few minutes ago, and Bob Sapp is a giant man. He looks like a dragon.
He weighed in 100 pounds more than me.
Yeah, and he left 100 pounds lighter than you because he was just on the. He's like, stop! Just stop hitting me! Just stop it! I don't want to fight anymore. And I mean, that's amazing. So thank you so much, Bobby, for stopping by. The last thing I want to get to is your career has spanned, success in every level. Professional wrestling, MMA, amateur wrestling, college wrestling, and. Would you say the highlight of your life was helping the President of the United States shave the head of Vince McMahon?
I was waiting for that one to come up. That one comes up all the time. You know what? I didn't know how big it was going to be at the time.
Yeah, right. No, nobody did.
And if I would have known, I would have probably blackmailed somebody for his hair.
Yeah.
Because I think, but you know what? At the time, and I can say this. I mean, whatever anybody's opinion of Trump now is, it's your opinion, whatever. At the time we were doing it, I mean, he understood the game. He wasn't coming in there trying to push his weight around. He said, "Look, I want to make this as good as I possibly can make it, and what can I do to help?" And that's all he did. And he said, I understand everybody has their own roles to play, and I'm going to play mine. So at the time, it was cool. It was an enormous event. I mean, it was the largest WrestleMania in history. It was something that is going to stick with me for the rest of my life, of course, especially because he's the president. And I get it on my Twitter feed all the time. I'm holding his hand up, and everybody said Bobby could have ended this way back when. So and it's I think somebody tweeted it probably about Probably about 2 years ago, and I mean, to this date, every time when I check, somebody retweets it still.
I'm waiting to see what your cabinet position is going to be. I'm excited to find out. Secretary of State, what are you going to
Defense.
Man, it's going to be awesome. Everybody give it up for Bobby Lashley. Make some noise. WWE Raw back at the Veterans Memorial Arena after a long absence. We're all really excited. Thank you guys for stopping by. Bobby, thank you so much for taking the time with us this morning. I know you are busy. I know you got a lot of press. And by the way, you smell magnificent. Not to make it weird or anything like that, but it is what it is. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.